Hi class, welcome. Today's video we're going to look at different ways by which firms started producing their goods in the second industrial revolution, right? Don't forget the second industrial revolution is referencing this time period that we've been talking about all unit long, late 1800s, 1850 to 1900, 1910, wherein we saw the movement away from agriculture and towards industrial factory production. All right, so not only then were firms making different things, they were also using new practices, right? This is what we want to understand in this video. All right. A lot of people say that it was this time period here wherein many of the modern practices that we associate with this field of business first came to be used. We saw these used for the first time. Practices like what? As production was taking place in factories, there was an increased role for firm managers, for plant managers, for the bosses to analyze the details of a task, right? Ask questions about whether or not we're actually making goods and services in the most cost-effective and efficient way, or if instead something can be changed. And so there was systematic analysis about the production of goods and services. Relatedly, we saw during the late 1800s plant managers trying out different techniques, trying to stretch out more productivity. A really good example of this is in assembly line production, which you may have heard of before, which is also sometimes called continuous flow production. Okay, so what does that mean? Under assembly line production, workers will do the same task over and over again on each individual unit that is produced, right? One worker does the same task on this unit. They repeat that same task on the next unit and so on. And so the workers then are stationary while the output or the thing that's being built or made is oftentimes moving along a conveyor belt along the assembly line. Okay, and so it was during these years that this sort of thing was first used. This doesn't sound so attractive to me from the perspective of a worker, but we should recognize that from the perspective of the plant owner, right, whose objective is to maximize the productivity of those resources. This was a game changer. You can make things much, much more quickly when using this technique than what was used before, which was having the same worker go around and do a bunch of different tasks along each individual object that's being produced. Okay. Another big idea from this time period is that greater attention was given to the importance of incentives for plant managers and for workers. What that means is, so incentives, remember, are rewards and punishments associated with some activity. And so bonuses in some cases were given to managers who were delivering output at low costs, right? By offering a bonus like this, you can get more productive factories. We saw this applied to workers as well, where there were changes to the structure, the way in which they were paid. A famous anecdote, famous example of this is Henry Ford of Fords. Henry Ford tried this practice of paying people efficiency wages. That's a good term to know, efficiency wages. And the story goes that Henry Ford offered his factory workers a wage of $5 per day, which doesn't sound all that great here in modern times, but at the time was really generous. And the $5 per day represented significantly more than workers could get from other factories. And so why did Ford do this? Right? He was able to hire workers when paying less than $5. He wasn't, I think, trying to be generous or look out for the interests of his workers. He was trying to do this to make more profit. So it's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? Paying workers more, leading to more profit for the firm owner. But what ended up taking place was that when workers received these efficiency wages, they became more productive. They worked harder. Rates of absenteeism, which is to say how likely it is that workers are going to call in sick, went down. And you can understand the logic, I think, quite clearly. If you're a worker who has this job that's paying much better than is being offered at all the other alternative firms, of course you want to do what you can to keep that job. And you do so by working hard and turning out that output. And so we saw efficiency wages here in the late 1800s with Henry Ford. Another reason why I like this idea is because we can see this today in modern production. Given that I'm on video here and this might be forever, I won't call out any specific firms that we see in modern times, but I bet you can think of some, right? Some businesses where they're well known for paying workers more than they have to, but in exchange, those workers are really, really productive. They're working hard. They're making a lot of units for the company. All right, guys, there you go. Changes to practices that we saw with respect to how things were made in this time period. See you next time.